Now, everyone knows that even as we build prosperity and improve governance and fight corruption, we also have a fundamental obligation to keep our people safe. And that's the last challenge, the third challenge I want to just mention quickly. In the 21st century, we're learning every day that next door is everywhere, and there can be no limit to our vigilance, either in territory or in time. Last year in this forum, I suggested that the fight against violent extremism may well be the defining challenge for our generation. Nothing that has happened since has caused me to change my mind. But I want to emphasize that this confrontation with the forces of terror is not separate from reforming governance or from strengthening our communities in other ways, because doing so, as I've tried to describe, is fundamental to eliminating the opportunity for extremism. And as we take on this challenge, we have to avoid two dangers. The first is that we treat this violence as some sort of new normal, as I mentioned earlier, just a fact of modern life with which we're going to have to coexist. And the second is that we overreact and define our adversary so broadly that we invite remedies that backfire. Our efforts have to be properly directed at those who plan, finance, and carry out terrorist attacks, no less, but also no more. Because we recognize an important and an inescapable truth: the conflict is not between one civilization and another, which I sometimes read and you read. It's between civilization itself and barbarism. Every day begins, remarkable examples are brought to us of civility fighting back. Last month, an al-Shabaab gunman stopped a bus near the town of Al-Wak, Kenya, demanding that the passengers separate themselves according to religion. Instead, the Muslims shared their headscarves with the Christians to conceal their identity. And one Muslim passenger said simply, "We stuck together tightly. The militants told us they would shoot us, but we still refused and protected our brothers and sisters." Finally, the terrorists gave up and left. In June, a group affiliated with Daesh attacked one of the oldest Shiite mosques in Kuwait. 27 worshippers lost their lives. The attack's purpose was to sow hatred between Sunni and Shia Muslims. Instead, Kuwait's Sunni leaders urged their followers to pray at Shiite mosques. 35,000 people attended the funeral for the victims. The government vowed to rebuild the mosque, and a Sunni business leader stood up and offered to do the job for free. The truth is that for every act of terrorism, there are a multitude of efforts to promote interreligious respect and pluralism. In Kenya, an organization called Sisters Without Borders is striving to prevent radicalization of young people. In the Central African Republic, in Nigeria, Christian and Muslim leaders have joined ranks to ease sectarian tensions. In Norway, more than 1,000 Muslims formed a human chain around a synagogue to condemn extremist threats against Jews. In London, Orthodox Jews formed street patrols to shield Muslim neighbors from hate crimes. In country after country, citizens of all backgrounds have responded to deadly attacks by showing that we will not be intimidated, we will not be split apart, and we will not be provoked into abandoning our values. Just last month, when the leader of Daesh asked Muslims everywhere to wise up and join the cause, Muslims responded on Twitter, "Sorry, but I'm watching Star Wars." And "Sorry, I'm too busy being part of a civilized and functioning society." Some terrorists say that the greatest advantage they have, or some people say of the terrorists that the greatest advantage they have is that they have the dedication of fighters who are willing to blow themselves up. But the truth, our advantage is we would never ask anyone to blow themselves up. The terrorists drive people apart. We want people and nations to come together. And and they are. Governments from Niger and Chad are helping Nigeria to fight Boko Haram. The African Union is coordinating with Somalia to oppose al-Shabaab. And the International Coalition to counter Daesh now has 65 members and is making steady gains. And that coalition is something that the world has never seen before. Its members are drawn from every corner of the globe. They're engaged along multiple lines of effort. Some are training or equipping Iraqi armed forces. Some are blocking Daesh's money. Some are countering the terrorist propaganda. All are trying to stop the recruitment of foreign fighters. And much of the leadership within the coalition has come from Arab states, because no one knows better than they how high the stakes are and how to best win the battle of public opinion. I'll just tell you quickly that since coming together 16 months ago, the coalition has launched almost 10,000 airstrikes. We've shown how effective the combination of coalition air support and ground action by local partners can be. We are eliminating terrorist leaders. We're hammering their oil wells, cash collection centers, refineries. We are closing in on the full control of the Turkey-Syria border. We have seized major portions of the strategic highway between Daesh's two remaining strongholds, Mosul and Raqqa. Daesh has already had to slash the salaries they pay their fighters by 50%, and that was one of the great recruitment tools. And we have pushed the enemy already out of 30 to 40% of the territory that it once controlled. Now, yes, the struggle is far from over, but we are headed in the right direction. Look at Tikrit, Iraq's Sunni heartland. A year ago, the city was being pillaged by Daesh. Everybody left. Its thugs were everywhere, stealing anything not nailed down, killing anyone who didn't cooperate, posting images of their atrocities on YouTube. The local university was their headquarters. Today, that university has reopened with 16,000 students. 90% of Tikrit's population has returned, and Daesh is nowhere to be seen. Then there's Ramadi, the capital of Anbar province. Last May, it fell to the terrorists. A searing moment. Iraq's prime minister immediately vowed to put together a plan to retake it, and now, after months of training, clearing away explosives, fending off snipers, and sustaining more than 1,000 of Iraq's forces as casualties, they have reclaimed the heart of the city, and Iraqi security forces, with our support, are on the march to retake all of Anbar province. Each day, we're learning more about what works, and each day, we are intensifying the pressure on Daesh. Now, we've known from the moment that we started that this international coalition's success was going to take years. I said that here a year ago. I said it when we formed the coalition. So we have been consistent. But now we are consistently achieving our goals and making progress. In the end, mark my words, Daesh will be defeated. And the progress that we have made toward that end is undeniable. Our operational tempo is accelerating, the support of our allies is broadening, our partners on the ground are becoming stronger, and the terrorists never know what might hit them or from where. Now, I close by saying to you that nothing in the end would do more to terminate the threat of Daesh than, obviously, to negotiate an end to the war in Syria. And that is precisely what we are trying to do. Achieving it will not be easy. It isn't already. But we've taken important first steps. We've assembled a 20-member support group that includes every major country with a direct stake in Syria, including Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Iran, and Russia. We've all been together at the same table. Second, we've agreed on a list of principles endorsed by the UN Security Council, pointing the way toward the kind of stable, sovereign, inclusive, and non-sectarian Syria that we all seek. And third, we've set in motion a plan for direct negotiations between the government and the opposition, soon hopefully to begin in Geneva, to try to find the political settlement that everybody says is the only way ultimately to end the war. We're trying to find a political transition and internationally supervised elections, and we have agreed on a timetable for taking these steps so the process is not allowed to drag on endlessly. That's the outline. and now it has to be implemented. Now, many obstacles remain, but there are also compelling reasons why this initiative is so important. Every country in the region opposes Daesh, and even governments that disagree with each other on other issues acknowledge that the war has to end and a diplomatic solution has to be found. No one has more incentive to do that than the Syrians themselves to try to write a new chapter in their history. As usual, as we gather here in Davos in 2016, it's obvious from my comments and your own discussions and everything we know about the world today, we face gigantic challenges. But please, we should remember that compared to any earlier generation, we have tremendous advantages. A child today is more likely than ever before in history to be born healthy, more likely to be adequately fed, more likely to get the necessary vaccinations, more likely to attend school, and more likely to actually live a long life. Individuals and companies around the world thrive on new technologies that have made possible incredible breakthroughs in communications, education, healthcare, and economic growth. And Klaus has designated the work of these days in Davos to figure out how to harness the fourth iteration of the technology revolution. According to World Bank projections, the extreme poverty rate has fallen below 10% for the first time in history. Compared to 1987, when the World Economic Forum first met, the number of democracies has doubled, and the number of nuclear weapons has fallen by 2/3. All of this isn't because any one country did something, or because what governments alone have done. It's what happens when people, writ broadly, in faith-based groups, NGOs, governments, private sector, business, all come together valuing skills and valuing dignity, respect the rights of each other, and when they believe in the possibilities of progress, no matter how many setbacks are confronted along the way. That is really not a very complicated formula, folks. But it does give me a powerful sense of confidence about what we can achieve. By encouraging innovation, we can count on the individual ingenuity of people in our universities and laboratories, and yes, in basements and garages, to generate new ideas that will enable us to push back the boundaries of what is possible in energy, education, food security, health. And through a process of open discussion like we engage in here, we will continue to identify ways to improve governance, to foster shared prosperity, to create societies whose leaders are accountable and whose citizens have the privilege of thriving under rule of law. And by insisting on rights and dignity of every human being, we will ensure the defeat of Daesh and similar groups who have nothing to offer anybody except destruction and death. That is how we choose to have a world defined not by shutting off the world, not by segregating it by tribe, sect, religion, not by conflict, but by opportunity. And believe me, opportunity is something that the Daeshes and the Boko Harams and the Shababs can never offer.